Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Very
well,
nice.
good.
Very nice.
Charlie, can you hear us? Do you have your earbuds in?
In here without my normal TV.
Okay. Can you sit closer to the microphone?
Right? Does that help?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
So this will be an impromptu interview. Charlie sent us a bio, an autobiography that AI did for him a couple of weeks ago. And so I sent that through AI to give it some questions on this interview. So we're going to do the legacy series instead of on Bobby today because she's in the hospital. Send prayers to her, and we'll interview Charlie instead.
All
So,
right. I'm ready to go.
all right. So, in your autobiography, you mentioned moving frequently as a child and dealing with undiagnosed dyslexia. How did these early challenges influence your later approach in helping others through spiritual guidance?
How did my dyslexia help me help others? I was undiagnosed for many years, so I didn't even know that I had that handicap. Uh, I think any experience or negative experience that we've had in our lives, certainly my life, has helped me appreciate others that have that same dilemma. We're like buddies, right? And buddies in misery.
Awesome. So, your transition from successful insurance and investment work to spiritual leadership is intriguing. Could you describe the pivotal moments that led you to explore science of mind and new thought philosophies?
Good point. Uh, when I was like in my early 40s, Bobby was attending a class at the Whittier Y, and the class was being taught by Terry Cole Whitaker, uh, who's very vibrant and turned out to be a minister of science of mind or religious science. And so they became buddies, and I become intrigued with what they were sharing, and ended up we did have a science of mind church in Fullerton where we lived. And it was in an old Baptist church, beautiful, beautiful, uh, probably very old anyway, lovely place. And then I started taking classes. The first class I took was on prosperity, and that expanded my awareness so I could move beyond my former way of thinking to embrace more prosperity in my life. Not that it was lacking, but it opened the door for more. Um, and once I took that class and saw how it changed my life, then I wanted to take more classes, which I did, many more classes, which led up to become a practitioner of religious science, which is the healing arm of science of mind. Uh, I enjoyed that. I took it in like a sponge. I was ripe and ready for it. And then I liked philosophy so much, I ended up going to Los Angeles for that ministerial school. And I went there just because I wanted to learn more about philosophy. And so it was a wonderful school that brought in scholars from different colleges and taught us a lot of things. I got to take dumbbell English over again, the dyslexia kicking in. So I learned a lot, and I had no intentions of becoming a minister, uh, but one day we were required to write a lecture or a sermon on somebody that had died of cancer. So in those days, when I had my insurance brokerage business, Bobby's mother had become my secretary. So I put together a lecture on what you do if somebody had died of cancer. And that weekend, I was taking a bunch of young boys, middle school, my son's age, out to the desert, hiking up in a local mountain. And while they were hiking the mountain, I sat down at a picnic table and I wrote this. It's not really a sermon, it's more like a lecture on dealing with somebody, a child that had died of cancer. And so when I got back to the office, I had Bobby's mother, Edith, type it up for me. And lo and behold, she died about a month later of cancer. She actually found out, it took her probably 6 months to finally die, but she ended up with cancer. And so when she passed, I took the words that she had typed up for me and put them in terms of an adult instead of a child. So that showed me that I could do a minister's job. It just wasn't a high priority for me. So I took another semester and I became a minister. But all along, I wasn't so much into traditional ministry. I was always interested in healing. I guess that's a long answer to your question.
Great answer. Thank you. So you mentioned Bobby. Well, she was breaking barriers, training leaders in government institutions and Fortune 500 companies. And you were exploring the spiritual path. How did her groundbreaking career influence your ability to step away from traditional business? Or did it?
If I understand your question, is how did Bobby's career change affect my spiritual interest? What transpired was Bobby would start doing work in like England or Australia or some other countries, and I would travel with her, and then I would connect with other spiritual groups, and I joined a network. Ultimately, I became a member of the World Federation of Healing out of England. And in this journey where I got to travel with Bobby and seek out like-minded people, I met a lot of fascinating people on my journey, and I learned a lot more. That answers your question.
That's a good answer. Thank you. So your journey weaves together business acumen and spiritual exploration, but you're also an artist. How does your background in business inform your approach to growing and sustaining this ministry?
Oh, one thing I learned about creativity is that we all have it. Some people say, I could never be an artist. But everyone's life is very creative, no matter what path they choose. And when I was in insurance, I was very creative about marketing and some of the things I learned there. And so Bobby used to teach a class on psychometrics. And there was 5 basic shapes that a person would relate to. And 2 of the shapes, one was like a box or a square, and I related to that. And that meant a person that is well organized in terms of what they do. And the other one was a squiggly line. And that was a person that you could never pin down because they're always exploring new endeavors. And so after the marriage between the 2, which has helped me a lot in whatever endeavor I've done. So when I made a transition in my retirement years to begin, a friend stopped by the house and showed Bobby and I how to do some sculpturing. She brought an armature and a board, and that you could bring clay and shape something. Bobby made a pancake, and she said, "I'm through." And I started making a figure, and I enjoyed it so much that I went to a numerous amount of emeritus classes on sculpturing. And that got me, it was wonderful to be around other people that are doing sculpturing, because you learn as much from others as you do from teachers. That, I think, explains my transition.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as someone who's explored spiritual practices across multiple continents, and what universal truths about healing and spiritual guidance did you discover?
What universality? Okay. Well, more and more I understand that there's only one creator, and there's only one life, and there's only one power, and it's expressing itself in all creation, through everyone, and certainly through us. And that we say we are aligned with it, and the truth is we're one with it. And as on our spiritual journeys, I think the more that we are in tune with what our life's endeavor is, whatever we've chosen, is what makes us aligned with the spirit of life within us. So if we've chosen to be a nurse, or a doctor, or a soldier, Indian chief, we're aligned with our endeavor to be exactly who we're meant to be. And to me, that's universal. And what seems to be a dilemma in that understanding is that there's suffering in the world. And who in their right mind would choose suffering? I don't think most of us don't like to suffer. We tend to avoid suffering. And maybe that's one of the reasons I explored healing, because I saw results. I saw moving on from learning from the suffering rather than fighting. So universally, knowing that there's one life, one power, one presence, and it's the only creative power there is. It means it's in everything. So I can witness this power everywhere. And whether it's in nature, or other human beings, or animals, that's what I understand. That's where I'm at now.
Awesome. Thank you. So in an era when most men expected their wives to play supporting roles, you and Bobby created a different kind of partnership. How did reversing traditional roles enrich both your spiritual path and your marriage?
I think part of the success, in our 67 years is that we've supported each other. We didn't, if Bobby wanted to become a teacher, I supported her doing that. When she wanted to become a school counselor, I supported her doing that. When she wanted to go on and get her master's and later doctorate degree, I encouraged her. And she pretty much did the same for me. You know, I had no idea that I would end up what I'm doing. And either did she. And she made it clear she did not marry a minister. She was looking for a partner that continually provided financial support, not just emotional support. And when I became a minister, you know, there was, even though I had a job, they provided a car and income, was nothing like I had been making elsewhere. So she felt a little insecure at that time, but she didn't handle the finances. I've always handled the finances. So she didn't realize how secure we were. So she got a little upset, and we had to work through that for a while. And the traveling, I supported her, you know. I didn't go. When she was traveling throughout the United States, she'd travel like 4 or 5 days a week, and then we'd get together on weekends, and that worked out because our kids were pretty much almost out of high school or into college. They pretty much take care of themselves. So the answer is, in supporting one another at whatever endeavor we choose, has helped us in our relationships.
Awesome. So given that you're both successful in your roles, how have the different approaches guided others, you know, in guiding others, complement each other? So she's leading corporate leadership and you're leading personal and family, etc. How did that complement each other?
Well, Bobby wouldn't have been able to do what she did if she didn't have a secure home base, you know, place to come home to enjoy her family, which she's always been very high priority for her. She's a single child, and she's always encouraged family to get together, you know, have meals, break bread, vacation, all that stuff. So it provided a firm base, and she never had to really worry about any money or anything like that, because I've always been the person that provided supervision for homes and finances and stuff like that.
Awesome. So your work in alternative healing and spiritual counseling spans decades. How could you share a transformative experience that confirmed that you were on the right path? When did you know?
Good question. And there's many answers because it's happened numerous times. But the first time it happened, we were living in our custom home in Fullerton Hills, and I've achieved amount of success in insurance, and Bobby at that time, I think she had a marriage and counseling license, and she was doing well at that. So in the morning time on public broadcasting, I found myself intrigued with yoga. And Richard Hillman, who was the teacher, had two attractive young ladies with him, and one would do an advanced pose and a beginning pose. So I would, in the privacy of my bedroom, learn the practice of yoga. And after about, I don't know, maybe a year or so, I realized the value of prana, or energy. And I had two events. One was I started to develop a tumor on my left hand. And it frightened me because I have three young children. I thought, God, this could kill me. So I went to our physician and got a medical, and got a large life insurance policy, because I knew they wouldn't find the tumor because you had to feel it. You had to know where it was. So in the week's journey waiting for the outcome of the insurance underwriters, I directed prana, a life force, where the tumor was. And I outlined it with a pencil or a pen. So it got rapidly large. I certainly have medical treatment, but thank God it diminished and went to nothing. So that immediately showed me the value of the life force and directing it and what that was about. So that really opened my eyes to healing possibilities and the value of meditation. Then one other thing that happened that startled me, maybe 6 months later, I got up from my meditation towel, sat on the edge of my bed, said in the privacy of my own mind, I said, what's the meaning of life? Here I am. I got all the wealth I need. I've got all the toys. I've got this custom-made home. I've got nice vehicles, wonderful family. But what is the meaning of it all? When I asked that question, the answer came up, a sound, a voice that wasn't my voice, an inner voice that said, the meaning of life is to seek the resemblance of God. I said, what? And so I went running into the kitchen where my wife was feeding our three young sons. And I wanted to share with her my experience. And says, don't bother me now, I'm feeding the kids. So anyway, I had to look up in the dictionary what the meaning of resemblance was. I want to be absolutely sure I was clear on this message. And the word resemblance out of French means the same as, the likeness of. So that was my first awareness that, so then it put me on a journey of wanting to explore. And so I read everything I could get my hands on where people have had like a direct experience of God or lighting bush or whatever, and wanted to know more about what they thought that God was. And with dyslexia, I'm not a reader, but I became an avid reader. And I found out that, when you're really interested in something, doesn't matter what your handicaps are, you're going to find an answer. So we all know what my answer was to that. I've shared it because it evolved into understanding the universal presence of God.
Beautiful. So looking back on inheriting this ministry's leadership, what unique perspective did you bring to this role, given your diverse background in business, arts, healing, and then spiritual studies?
Well, when I had a parish, lovely church in El Centro, and it was made up of professional people pretty much because they're more intellectuals. So we had mentor teachers and lawyers, etc. While I was in South Central, I ended up getting sick, and one of the practitioners in our church suggested I go into Mexicali and meet the shaman, which I did. And we developed a relationship over many years, and I enjoyed going to Mexicali and being part of the team of what's called the Temple La Luz, which was involved in mostly into ceremonies of adoration and evolving into healing work. And Margarita was clairvoyant, clairaudient, so it opened my mind to those possibilities. But to get back to the question about finances, I felt I needed to quit the organization, which is another long story. But then Bobby was angry with me because, I had produced some income and she thought that was important. Now I'm giving it all up, income and something I love to do. So everybody encouraged me to put on my financial cap and do more in the investment field, which I did, and which led us to be able to pay off our house, etc. And so I was always interested in investments since I was 17.
So speaking of investments, what's the shared vision for the summer fund and when did that come into existence?
My guess is that was about 8-9 years ago. It occurred to me that for the longevity of the organization, we need to have some assets. We need to have something we could rely on. So Bobby and I agreed that we could do a matching fund thing. But at that time, the ministry was making enough income from membership. They really didn't need that for membership. So then we were pledging, growing this fund, so now we could tithe to other organizations that needed financial help. So I've always had the notion, idea, or practice in supporting other nonprofit organizations, because if one holds on tightly to their money, you're not going to grow. You're kind of, and if you do, you don't appreciate it. So my understanding is it's like planting seeds. It's like giving a harvest out there freely, supporting others. And through that endeavor, then usually what is a reciprocal part of that we get support. People that support others get more support.
Yeah.
Whatever. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that we give as well, and we publish the people that we are supporting through that fund. So we appreciate that too.
Yeah.
So your publishing company focuses on books that enhance spiritual awareness, but how do you see the relationship between storytelling and spiritual growth in today's world? How has that evolved for you?
Okay. Well, when I read all those books about what relationship with God meant to other people, that's storytelling from people's personal experiences. Mm-hmm. And when I eventually had Arnold Michael, because the Plus Among Women book that I got a hold of somehow and read it, it was the most intuitive spiritually enlightened book I ever read in my life. So I wanted to meet the author of it. And when I met him and found out he had written another book that was equally as good in different aspects of living. Uh, I want to be absolutely sure that they stayed in publishing, that they were always available. So that prompted me to start a publishing company. And before that, I had written 3 books on spiritual psychology that were published by a well-known spiritual publisher here in Los Angeles. And I was delighted that they would even accept my work, even though it was a form of self-publishing. They didn't just welcome anybody, they only welcomed people they thought were teaching a spiritual message. So that's what interests me in publishing, was to keep Arnold Michaels' books and publish, and also make my books available if people want them.
Awesome. Thank you. Are there any questions I haven't asked you that you would like to expound on? And then I'll turn it over to everybody else to ask their questions.
Offhand, I think you've asked very pertinent questions, and even though I tend to give lengthy answers, yeah, so let's just open up the questions.
Okay. Anybody else?
Me. I've noticed, over the years I've observed your beautiful paintings, but I also noticed that there was a change. I think a few years ago you did something I think you called the womb, and since then I'm seeing more geometrical, more spiritual. Was there epiphany that went with that as well?
Yeah, I think the thing that I think it's been a gradual trend. Well, there's been numerous moments of, you could say, enlightenment, and there's been suffering along the way. And one of the sufferings I needed to learn was when we had put in the presidency somebody that had not been fully vetted or had been in our organization long enough to appreciate really what we're about. And when she decided to attack me for something I said, and later on attacked another male in our organization, it startled the both out of us. And Danny left the organization, and I was desperately looking for answers, trying to reconcile this in my own mind. So that's eventually I did pull out for like 2 or 3 months until that person decided to disappear and leave the organization. Then I felt I could come back and not feel being attacked. So I didn't realize how vulnerable I could feel. Well, I guess my vulnerability is only more vulnerable when it comes from an organization of people that I love within the organization, or if it was somebody in my immediate family I love very much that was criticizing, what I consider harshly criticizing, is when I have some issues. So I guess I'm still learning.
Isn't that why we're here? To keep learning?
Yes, Paula, absolutely.
Nothing like pointing out the obvious, but yes.
Yeah. Yeah, there's 2 sides to that. We're here to learn and we're here to give. And they're both important.
I think you're a wonderful example for all of us that no matter how old you are, there's still something you can learn. And I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Well, because most people think, they think 70 you're done, and
Yeah,
you've shown us that you're not only not done, you're going forward, you're still learning new stuff, you're still teaching new stuff. Your
He still
artwork
plays
is
tennis.
he still plays well, and don't go there. Um you're talking to a couch potato. But I mean, look at the wonderful things you've done with your art as well. So thank you for being such a model for all of us because we are all younger than you, except for Shirley. Um,
yeah. Well, I never expected to live this long. I just knew as a good Catholic I was going to die the same age as Jesus, right? At 33.
Surprise.
guess
And
what?
then okay, my next role model was my father. He died at 51, and I said, "Oh, for sure, I'm going to die at 51." So you can see I don't know very much at all.
Nice of you to admit that. Yes.
Yeah, and it is amazing to have these what we call it extra years, because I can be here as a support system, which I am for our family, my kids, their kids, great grandkids, and financially I'm able to help support other organizations that do good work. And I'm still able to hang into this one, and I hope under your leadership, Paula, and the board, that you always find a way to continue. Because usually the people that are attracted in our organization have had the benefit of spiritual growth. They know how healing works. And so we create a camaraderie of like-minded people, and we're there to support one another. And even in our disasters as well as our triumphs.
So true. So true.
Any other questions from others?
Yeah, I had one. Charlie, you mentioned earlier about you had the opportunity to travel around the world and meet interesting people. Who was the most interesting person you met, and how did it affect you spiritually? Or what lessons did you learn spiritually from them?
Good question, Kevin. Thank you. When I joined the World Federation of Healing in England, at the time the president was Marion Butler, and very impressive lady. She was from Wales, and at an early age she was a gifted psychic. And in those days they almost burned you at the stake, so that didn't come out. But as time progressed, people became more liberal in their thinking. And some of the stories she told me, like because of her gift, for instance, a young boy who was probably 5 at the time, who was a victim of thalidomide. And so when he was born, he didn't have fingers. And, growing up in the family, it didn't bother him at all because family loved him, accepted the way he was. But then he entered school, and the boys and everyone found out he was different, and that it became a real issue. So they ended up bringing this young boy to Marion, and took her a while to kind of gain his friendship or his confidence. But over about 12 meetings, his fingers grew back. And to me, that was remarkable.
No.
And then I met another guy who had been previous president of the World Federation of Healing. And I visited him. And he was treating a young lady for about 13 years when she was like maybe 9 or 10. Now she's like 23. And she was born a hunchback. And over the 13 years of treatments, she gradually gained some promise to. She moved a little higher, you know, if you're like bent over like this, maybe after 13 years you're more like that, and maybe you right now can lift yourself 10 inches higher. So when I saw that, this man, the dedication of these two to commit to a healing over such a long period of time without giving up was absolute amazing. And this man in England was also self-educated, and he passed the exam to be a marriage and family counselor in the UK. So he was another prime example of. And then I met another guy that on my travels in England, Ron Ager, who was who developed epilepsy, and there was a healer in England at the time, renowned, called Harry Edwards, and he went to Harry Edwards, and he got healed, and as a result of that, became a meditation teacher and had a church of his own called the Center for Unity. So I met some marvelous people like that, and then my healing work began to get more interesting, more intriguing, where I was taken to different places and meeting different people with different challenges, and was able to kind of intuitively know what to say or what to do. It didn't come out of any books, it just came through me. And I guess that kind of answered your question, Kevin.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Awesome. Anybody else? What are your
How
key?
did you and Bobby meet?
What's the question?
How did you and Bobby meet?
Okay, I'll give you a long answer. Where I went to school, high school, 95% of the kids went on to college, and my family never were involved in that. Because of my dyslexia and changing schools, I didn't know what to do. So I went to local community college and took dumbbell math, dumbbell English. And for the first time ever, I hungered for the education and the stuff that I was learning. It was wonderful. And so I applied for 3 colleges out of state. And the first one that accepted me was the University of Colorado. So that's where I met Bobby, at the University of Colorado, and it was a blind date. And I needed the date because we had a formal dance in May, and I needed a date for that. I wasn't really interested in relationships. I was partying. I didn't want to be pinned down. So this was like in February. And so the blind date went well. And I got the message to the people that set up the blind date. Why aren't you calling Bobby back? Don't you like her? Yeah. So eventually I did call her back, and we found out we had a spark between us that ignited when we sat down and discussed our interests and what we wanted out of life. And she was a very good dancer, and I loved to dance, especially after a few glasses of beer. And so that's where I met at the University of Colorado.
Cool. Very nice.
Sweet. Anything else we want to share? No big burning questions. Okay, what do you see for the future of our ministry?
Before I get into that, I'd like to talk about probably my journey has been, I always thought, early on, because I was sheltered, I guess, that life didn't change. Everything was perfect and I felt secure if things didn't change. But in a relationship, you certainly find out that things change. You evolve, you get older, you have kids, you have grandkids, and all that. And then you change occupation several times. So life does change. So I appreciate the change now instead of fighting. But what was the question? Oh, where do I see the ministry going? Is that what the question?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any intuition regarding that. All as I know is that while I'm still here, I want to support it in its continuity. And I hope it continues to attract lovely people like you guys that have the interest in maintaining it and sustaining it. And hopefully it will grow. It'll grow in ways that we don't know right now.
Dolly Lambert.
I'm getting a
Hi,
call
Dolly.
from my caregiver right now.
Awesome.
I'll get back to her.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that we've had a good session. I doubt if Bobby would be, she's gonna go, it's gonna take a while to go through this recovery process. So
Okay.
we'll have to have somebody else.
Okay. Well, we can come back around to her. We've got a lot of other people we haven't yet interviewed. Katrina, as the newest member, what would you have to say about what you see the future of our ministry to be? Or what would you like to see?
Oh boy. I'm not really sure where I would like to see it go because I like where I see it going so far.
Mhm.
Just with these interviews, and I was late because of course I forgot to turn back my time. But just from what I heard so far, these interviews fill me with so much joy and with so much hope. I'm hearing things that I never heard of before. In these meetings, I'm learning new things. And that's something about, as you teach, you're also a perpetual student and learning new things. And it just gives me hope in different things that I can teach to people myself. And I'd never heard of the World Federation of Healers or any of that sort of stuff before. And that just warms my heart like so much. I learned so much from all of you all the time. And what I would really hope is that I can continue to learn. So I do see this as a platform where we teach each other the way we've been doing, as much as we're able to take those skills and go out and teach other people. I love the education part. I love informing people. I love the acts of service. How that will play out, who knows? But I really love what I see so far. I do think, though, that there should be a platform for getting the word out even more. And I'm building that on TikTok right now, trying to do that. But I am just amazed by everyone that I have seen so far. I absolutely love being a part of this group.
Wonderful. We love having you. We do.
Katrina, thank you for that. And that reminds me, I reached out to May Long, who has rich background and a lot of time spent in this ministry to see if she'd be willing to be interviewed. And the day that I got in touch with her, she texted me back and said, yes, I am interested, but my sister died today. Her sister was involved in our ministry for a while. So she'll be available. And I think, like Katrina says, when you're learning about the depth of somebody else's journey, somehow it touches us.
Nice. Yeah, I was looking through her Flickr account for pictures of you and Bobby. So took a trip down memory lane.
Sure.
Awesome. So anybody else, or how about, since we can't do Bobby next week, who would like to be interviewed, or who would you like to interview? Any one of us?
Has
Otherwise,
Terry
get
I'd like to
assigned.
interview.
Has Terry
I'd like to.
has Terry been interviewed?
Not yet.
Yes, she'd be a good one.
She comes
Yes,
on the
we do.
fourth Sunday of each month. We could ask her.
And you, Nikki, you.
Yeah,
I'd like to hear someone interview you.
okay. That's doable. And Paula?
Already done. I'd like to interview Kevin.
Kevin? Okay. You want to do Kevin next week?
Ask Kevin.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I don't think
Yes.
I don't think I have anything to say, but anyway.
Oh, yes,
But you
do.
answer questions
Oh,
really
get
well.
out. You do.
I would like to hear
Yes.
Kevin as well.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
So
So
Paula,
next week you're on the spot, Kevin. Okay.
awesome.
Okay.
Write that down because I'll forget.
Yep. All right.
Okay, thank you guys. I gotta get a hold of Bobby. See how-
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Give
you,
her our
Rusty.
love.
I
Yes.
Take care.
And many blessings to you all.
And before we leave, my
Mhm.
friend Cheryl, that you've been praying for almost a
Yes.
year,
Yes.
was finally freed from hospital and is now home. She still has a journey,
Yeah.
but the bone marrow transplant has taken effect and her blood work is fine. And she again says, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Beautiful.
Bless you all. And I'm going to be visiting her in November, and hopefully I can get her to come online and tell you her story herself.
Awesome. That's great.
So,
Great
yeah,
news.
she's
Yeah,
just an
please put
awesome
Bobby and
human
I
being.
on your prayer list. And
Definitely.
Definitely.
congratulations, Laura, belated birthday.
Thank
Yeah.
you. 81. Ooh,
Okay.
I'm catching up to you, Charlie.
All right. Have a great week, everybody.
Yep.
Take care, everybody.
Love you all.
you.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
week.
Bye.